Oh, there's a spaceship. Shoot it. What's that, a robot? Blasted to pieces. Who's flying these ships and why are they even here? Who cares? Just blow them up. It's interesting how often we don't ask questions like those when playing games. But that's probably due to games like this, first-person space shooters. This was a very popular genre back in the late 70s/early 80s. Each one tried something a little different and tried to expand on the general concept, but they all come back to just shooting whatever you see flying around in space, no questions asked. It all goes back to Atari's 1976 arcade game Starship 1, which introduced the idea of the first-person space shooter. The game was one of the first in line to be ported to Atari's new VCS console and launched alongside the system in 1977. Since I already covered that game in depth in another video, I won't spend much time on it here. The TLDR is that I found it absurdly simplistic, even by Atari 2600 standards. If you see something, you shoot it. If there's an asteroid field, avoid it. Nothing shoots back, and none of the enemy types behave any differently. You just shoot at stuff for 2 minutes and 16 seconds. There's no way to earn bonus points, and its single method scoring means there's no real strategy or skill set to work on. Given the game's age and status as a launch title on a system built for Pong and tanks, it's pretty impressive that Bob Whitehead was able to get it up and running at all. That said, none of the context actually helps make the game fun to play, especially today. This would thankfully end up being the most simplistic form the genre took. In 1979, Magnavox attempted to one-up Atari at their own game with a title called Cosmic Conflict. You play as a legendary hero of the Earth Federation, piloting the Starship Centurion. You've been tasked by Star Command to eliminate 15 of the enemy Empire's invasion fleet all by yourself. Gameplay-wise, it plays very similarly to Starship, though aiming feels smoother and more responsive. There are 3 enemy types in total: battle frigates, invasion transports, and Imperial starfighters. Imperial starfighters, eh? Yeah, they weren't even being subtle with this one. The first 2 enemy types are basically the same. Neither of them attack you, they just try and fly around you as quickly as possible to avoid attacks and make you waste your shots. The fighters, on the other hand, will come out of hyperspace and make strafing runs at your ship. In these cases, you'll need to either shoot them before they get close enough to shoot you, or just move away until they're off screen. This game abides by the old rule of if you can't see them, they can't hurt you. What happens if you do get hit though? You may have noticed that the on-screen number keeps going down in the bottom right corner. This is your ship's energy level, represented in megajoules, as the manual is quick to point out. Well, I'm glad they cleared that up. Who knows how long I would have been pondering what unit type they were using to measure your remaining energy. The game begins with 1000 megajoules, but counts down for every action you take. Firing your laser starburster takes 10 megajoules for each shot. Getting hit by an enemy starfighter takes 50, and 1 megajoule is subtracted for every second in order to sustain flight. Destroying all 15 ships within the allotted 1000 megajoules is how you beat the game. You're even given a message from Star Command for completing your mission. In fact, you're given a message even if you fail.
Message?
Oh, there's text from
Star Command. Please report for court-martial. What? You get court-martial just for not being good enough?
That's the funniest message.
Okay. Like, I don't think they court-martial you for just not being great. Like, maybe demote you, but it's like straight up court-martial. Not even captain's mass. I'm like, at least send me the captain's mass. Like,
since there are no higher difficulty levels, the challenge comes from seeing how many megajoules you can have left after completing the game. I do think it's a fun little game, but that kind of scoring method just doesn't do it for me. Once I completed the mission, I felt no desire to go back and play it again. There are just a few too many random elements with the enemy ship movement to make it feel like you have an equally good chance of achieving a high score on any given run. The last game I'll be looking at is Mattel's Space Battle on the Intellivision. One look at the thickness of the instruction manual is enough to tell you that this one's going to be a bit more complex than the others. No shock there. Okay, so while it does still feature the tried and true first-person spaceship blasting action, it also adds this whole tactical radar view thing. Your goal is to defend the mothership, which is represented by that square at the center of the screen. There are enemy fighter squadrons approaching from the corners of the screen that will slowly make their way toward the mothership in order to destroy it, and you have to take them all out before they get there. You have 3 separate fighter squadrons yourself that you can deploy and send out on an intercept course. Once they run into a group of enemies, you can engage them in more traditional space combat. All of this is controlled with the keypad by using the handy overlays. The top row is used to deploy or select one of your squadrons. The middle row is used to command your squadron to return to the mothership for defensive purposes. And the third row is how you actually attack a group of enemies once you've made contact. The alien button at the bottom is how you select which group of aliens you want a specific squadron to go after. First, though, you have to use the top row to select which of your squadrons you want to control first, and then pressing the alien key until it cycles through to the correct enemy group. All of this is how it's described in the manual, but for whatever reason, they wouldn't always go where I wanted them to. Battles take place on a fixed section of space where you now control a targeting reticle of one of the fighters. You control the reticle with the directional disc and fire with any of the controller's 4 action buttons. The number of enemies you need to destroy is located at the bottom left, and the number of fighters left in your squadron is on the bottom right. The remaining fighters essentially act as the amount of lives left for each squadron, seeing as you only control one at a time and the number goes down if you get hit. You might be wondering then how you even get hit if you can't actually move your ship. Basically, if the enemy missiles hit your targeting reticle, you lose a ship. It doesn't make the most sense from an in-universe perspective, but that's not exactly a thread worth tugging on. Avoiding enemy projectiles isn't necessarily hard, at least not on the easier difficulties. That comes from actually trying to hit the enemy ships. Your reticle moves very slow, and the fancy loops that the enemies perform were impressive from a game from 1980, but I feel like they always seem to do one at the worst possible time. Alright, shoot him. Oh, come on. Oh, what? Oh my word. Come on! Dang. This wouldn't be such a big issue if it weren't for the one factor that I've left out until now. The entire game is moving in real time. That means that while farting around missing shots in the shooting sections, the rest of the enemies are still closing in on your mothership. You can use the radar key on the overlay to disengage your squadron and return to the main radar screen. From here, you can either give new orders to the current squadron or switch targets. The problem here is that if one of your other squads engages with a target while you're busy shooting bad guys, the computer will try and fight them on their own. Poorly. If you let it fight for you, it will lose all of your ships in just a few seconds. This should really only be used as a last resort to buy more time. And that's where the stress comes in. Even on lower difficulties, the combination of having to look back and forth between the keypad and the TV, plus the squadrons not always obeying your orders, plus the annoying looping enemies, equals one of the most stressful games I've played on this channel yet. Applying stress through time management is actually not a bad thing if implemented correctly. Entire games and genres are built around that concept. But you have to at least give some brief respite from it. Here, though, the constant time pressure means it never leaves, and in fact only gets worse when you enter a battle screen. You know things are still going on in the background, but even performing a quick check means the incompetent computer will have to handle things in your absence. But not checking the radar screen can also lead you to making more mistakes on the shooting stages because you're so focused on getting through the battle as quickly as possible. Like, it's not actually a bad game, and the concept seems very solid on paper, but I just don't find it very fun in practice. A lot of early Intellivision games were focused on utilizing the keypad and delivering home computer type experiences, a holdover from the original plan to make it into a home computer. Thing is, most early computer games were usually slower paced, like text-based adventures and simulations. These Intellivision games were trying to blend more of that computer complexity with more action-packed games like sports and shooters, which really doesn't blend well in my opinion. Well, at least not when you make them like this. That said, the difficulty does lead to Space Battle having much more replay value than the previous 2 games. Maybe if I put more time into playing Space Battle, I'd be able to memorize the keypad layouts and not have to keep looking down, but, I mean, why? Why put that much time into a game I don't even really enjoy? Not to mention, there are other better games using a similar concept, including Atari's Star Raiders, which released the same year. While simple space shooters like these don't really exist in the modern day, their influence can still be felt in genres like flight sims, RTS games, and even early light gun style shooters. As it stands, most of these games are generally forgotten about when discussing console gaming from this era. They may not have had the timeless staying power of the classic fast-paced Golden Age arcade titles of the time, but they can still be fun to mess around with for a few minutes. Well, mostly.
you.